One of the things that I appreciate about discussing things on YouTube is it's not driven by commercial value in the way discussions on, say, the mainstream media are. So even though the topic of religion and debate over religion has largely subsided here on YouTube, it was allowed to continue in more or less its natural course over the course of several years, in which a variety of people hashed out most of the major talking points. Of course, as time goes on, new people get new motivations to enter the debate, or fresh reminders of, oh yeah, even though we've talked this over ad nauseum, there are still people wasting hundreds of millions of dollars or tens of millions of dollars to put billboards all over the country about how the world's going to end on May 22nd or May 21st, and it didn't. And come up with more specific insights into various things or new approaches as people evolve their ideas. In mainstream news, it's just like, oh, this is the book of the month, this is the hot topic, this will get some airtime, grab some attention, how can we spin this in a way that's hostile? So in a way, as much as massively exposed people like Richard Dawkins and Sam Harris were good for exposing or opening the door to criticizing religion on a wide scale. At the same time, the media frame this in a largely combative and negative way, and so that becomes the overall perception. The more mundane reality, of course, is that these are just things that people like to discuss, maybe in a philosophy of religion class or over YouTube videos or things like that, and they can have their own very heated opinions and be very opinionated about what they believe, but not necessarily have this total us against them mentality that is the narrative that they want to sell in the media, because that's more attention grabbing than saying, hey, these people are having a intellectual debate. No, it's us against them, because, as I said, that just sells more. So really, YouTube occupies an almost unique space within our society right now, in that I can say more or less whatever the fuck I want and have an audience and not be beholden to the sort of commercial considerations that, say, Fox News or MSNBC or any of these other major media companies have to uphold, because it's not a matter of who has the better team of researchers and fact-checkers in terms of sources of information in the world and credibility and that sort of stuff, the whole credibility game. The distortion that happens when you have to rely on having a mass audience to sustain your mass-produced product is very distinct in our society, I think. And when we see people like Glenn Beck, I don't think that the majority of people are quite as out there. We select these outrageous people to be the spokespersons or whatever because they're provocative. And if, say, it was cable access or YouTube or something like that, you can have people who are calmly talking sense. But when you have to make the magic numbers appear, the viewing figure numbers to get your ad revenue, your sponsorships from all these companies to make your profit, then it's really no surprise that you see News Corp and NBC, Universal, all these major conglomerate companies trying to be outrageous. And that's sort of what irritates me most about American society, to be honest, is that so many things are distorted in our culture because they have to not even be commercially viable, but they have to be produced on a they need a mass audience because they're produced on a mass scale. They don't need to be given to a mass audience because it's good for a large number of people. It's let me put it this way: in reading a book on a film and the movies and the Hollywood industry, the way the book framed it is that the need for a mass audience is caused by the massive scale of the production. So you can make a movie for essentially free, but the production quality will be very low. But why would you need to spend, say, $200 million to make a movie? Once you've invested $200 million into making a movie, it demands an audience who can return a profit of $200 million or greater. And movie companies music companies, a lot of these companies almost work in the reverse way of an insurance company. A lot of losses, shows that get canceled, albums that don't sell, etc., movies that fail, and a few major successes. So culture in America is driven by creating large-scale products which ultimately diminish in quality. I think that is a major disillusionment for people in, say, 21st century America, is that silverware and salt and pepper and modern conveniences we take for granted were once literally the domain of kings and emperors and nobility. The common people couldn't afford this. Capitalism made these things widely available to the common man, but in order to make them available to the common man, you can't have the dresser, which is not every individual person could afford a handcrafted quality thing. There's some diminished simulation of what it was that people originally strived for. So, Oneida Silverware used to be a highly respected and valuable silverware company. Now it's just like, aluminum pressed in China. All the quality has been stripped from the product in order to make it widely available. So you have people striving for commodities that they diminish in value to make them cheap and widely available, and then they acquire those and as their status, or I need this, I need that, and they acquire, and they realize what they bought is just crap, and that sends them striving for the quote-unquote better products. And then you have companies trying to reach out and appeal to people on psychological levels, on levels of taste, making these extravagant, multi-million-dollar movies and other things where they're just investing a lot of money, and it demands a large audience. And because it demands a large audience, it has to be generic in numerous ways. For example, the BBC, and this is just a sort of minor example, BBC would instruct their actors to speak in a generic dialect for television audiences. It's, there's like a BBC English, essentially. So as everything is pushed towards being generic, as a consequence, there reaches a point where, why did I value X, Y, or Z to begin with? So I want to be sophisticated and live like the aristocracy, but now all I can afford is not actual silverware made of silver, but just something pressed from a sheet that is completely utilitarian and cheap and sold, by the bucket load at Walmart, instead of something that at once upon a time had some actual quality and value. And value and quality diminish on numerous levels as things push towards being more and more generic. So originality and uniqueness and authenticity, all of these things become not as important as reaching the most people as possible. So we get Transformers 2, and we get Twilight, and we get all of this poorly constructed media. It's not that I don't think that it has no right to exist. It's not that I think that Stephanie Myers should have her hands chopped off so she can never write again or something like that, or that Michael Bay should be shot, although yeah, Michael Bay probably should be shot. The point is that of all the things that we could have done with the hundreds of millions of dollars that we invested into making the Transformers movies, what else could have our society have done with its time and money instead of investing probably, if you count up the 3 movies in terms of what went into making them, and then what people paid in terms of ticket prices, and then what the time lost from all these people sitting around watching these movies. What else could humanity have accomplished in the meantime? And so, as we go towards larger and larger, more inflated, more mass-produced products, it seems like more and more is inevitably just wasted. This recent incident with Harold camping and the May 21st prediction at the end of the world was a good reminder to me of why I am militantly opposed to organized religion, and why I don't back down in the face of people who say, it makes grandmas happy, so why don't we leave well enough alone? Because the problem is that if these ideas are not true, then they are a spectacular waste of human effort and human resources. New York Times said that something on the order of $100 million was spent on this advertising campaign to declare that the world would end on May 21st. Of course, it didn't. And incidentally, I predicted on the Atheist Experience, I used my powers of biblical prophecy to say that when 2012 fails to be the end of the world, that the people who push the idea will say that the world did end, but on a spiritual level, and that is exactly on May 22nd, the tune that Harold Camping was singing, because, I mean, religion as a corporation, organized religion, I compare it analogously to a corporate hierarchy, and they're selling a product, and they have the ultimate product, because their product is nothing. It is intangible. It is ideas in people's heads. So they don't have to actually produce anything of any tangible worth. So why would they produce an end of the world that was tangible either? Religion, in the way that it diverts people's attention from things that actually do matter, is distressing. And if we're serious about human progress, or whatever, high and mighty crap you want to frame it as, or even if we're just want to make the world a better place, it behooves us to ask, well, is this worth the money? Is this worth the time? And I can say, having been on the YouTube discussion of religion for many years now, that is what I see as what has been lacking thus far in the dialogue over these sorts of things. Because I think a lot of people are sort of hip to the problems with American society and capitalism, and are disillusioned. But when we look analogously at religion as a product, and religion as an industry that is absorbing human resources and time and whatnot, that the level of religious skepticism, I think, needs to be shifted from a debate over the sort of truth or falsity, or more abstract discussions over the veracity of the Bible or the existence of God, to, wait a minute, who is this guy that Grandma is sending her last $100 to? Oh, he's on television begging for money. Oh, okay. That reminds me of something. Oh, this is a con artist. This is a con artist disguised as a religious teacher. This is a motivational speaker disguised as somebody delivering the word of God, or whatever. This is some sleazy used car salesman scumbag, on television, giving words of knowledge and all this theological nonsense to middle America, calling the show the fucking 700 Club or some faith healer. You know, some of these people are in it for money, and they should be not tolerated in the slightest. And I think there's all sorts of control that goes along with religion, but I think you can simply start by saying, okay, here's a theological idea that people are debating over. What's the origin of this idea? Who's trying to sell it to me? Oh, this is somebody's opinion. This is somebody's interpretation of this. And I'm mindlessly going along with it like a sheep. People, before they can get to the level, for most of them, where they say, is there a God? Is there not a God? They first need to say, who is this pastor whose word I am taking as authoritative? Who is this person on television or whatever? I think that most people have been intimidated into turning and running from the discussion of religion because it's such a divisive issue, but the same as you wouldn't want somebody that you care about to be in a relationship with somebody who was, say, a scumbag abuser type person, why would you want your someone else that you care about to, say, empty their bank account and spend their life savings creating billboards and advertisements on what you in all probability thought was ridiculous? The man who spent something like $100,000 his entire life savings to put up these billboards, where was his family saying that, hey, this is a pretty stupid idea and you're wasting your money and you shouldn't be doing this, and there's a lot better things that you could be doing with your time and with your money? Where were those people? I don't think, maybe this is an isolated case because this is just some loner with no real family connections who just happens to have $100,000 in his life savings. It's possible. Or maybe it's because we live in a society where we can't even confront people on the most basic issues of what they think is true about reality, because we're told to always back down and back away from those things, to not upset and not offend people. And so we let it get to the point where there are people wasting their money on faith healers, allowing their children to die from when they could have been cured because they don't believe in modern medicine, or blindly following, you know, people like Warren Jeffs. All of this is a complete failure on the part of society to step in to the lives of the people and being like, look, this is bullshit. Don't waste your money. And it does take people standing up and speaking out to stop this sort of thing. And so this idea that we should just leave well enough alone on the subject of religion because grandma doesn't want to just believe that when she dies, that's it. That's too much for her to take. So let's let her send her life savings to Benny Hinn or Pat Robertson. What a crock of shit. I mean, really. I think it's a childish attitude that people have towards the subject of having a frank discussion of religion, and everybody wants to tiptoe around it. And I, in a nutshell, just think that society needs to grow the fuck up and actually take these discussions seriously, so that we can, regardless of whether or not people believe in God, I think that people flying planes into buildings, or people getting together and wasting $100 million on an advertising campaign for an end of the world that was never going to happen, is a travesty and a complete waste of human resources that is needless. And the solution to solving it is just actually confronting these issues, discuss it, evolve ideas, and break down these, power structures of frauds and con artists and people who are just totally off in their own little numerological world, where they really convince themselves and others that the world's going to end. I don't think any of this is necessary, and humanity can do better, and doing better isn't that hard. So the debate goes on, I suppose.